Hey y'all, welcome to Racing Crafts. Today I'm going to show you the stamped background technique. Well, the stamped inked background technique, I guess it would be called. It's the technique I use to get this piece right here. So let's go ahead and get started. What I have is the stamp, and this is the Joy and Mary stamp set from Sizzix and Hero Arts. I have a piece of white cardstock here. This is just a 4.5 by 6.5 inch piece that I had laying around. You're going to cut it down a little bit more from there. I have my embossing buddy. I have some Versamark ink, and I have some clear embossing powder. And I'm going to be using my Tim Holtz Distress Stain along with my stamp and embossing folder. So let's go ahead and get started. I just went over my piece with my embossing pal, and I'm going to go ahead and ink up my stamp. Now on this stamp I'm not even going to bother trying to mount it. It's just not worth it. I get a better impression just putting the paper on top of it, which is partially why the paper is just a tiny bit bigger anyways. Plus, like I said, I already had it cut and it was there. Okay, you're just going to ink up your stamp, and you want to make sure you've got it nice and inked everywhere. And then I'm just going to take my paper and just lay it down. Now, when you do this, you want to make sure that you've always got one hand that is still. And you're just going to put nice even pressure. Like I said, always making sure you've got one hand still. You could use a brayer for this. You could use, I guess if you wanted to, you could, run a block across it. This would probably work just as easy. Except obviously you would want a clean block. And then when you're nice and evenly applied, go ahead and pull your sheet up. Now this part, it also comes in handy to have it just a bit bigger than the size you really need, for two reasons. Like I said, one, it's easier when you're stamping it, and two, you have a place to hold on to it that you know is not going to interfere with your stamp or your embossing powder. Now, as you can see, I need some clear embossing powder. But all you're going to do is go ahead and just cover this whole stamped piece. And I'm just using a little piece of scratch paper here to spoon my embossing powder on. And I've got a nice place to hold on to my stamp, or my piece here, on both ends. Now on the sides, on the paper I used, there's really not a place to hold on to it. It gets pretty close there. But having the top and bottom open works nicely. It works really well. Okay, I'm just going to close my powder up, and I'm going to shake my background off here. And I'm just using this black background so it's a little bit easier for you guys to see. And now I'm just going to grab my heat tool, and on this it actually just works better to just hold on to it. And you're going to melt your embossing powder. Now there's a couple places that I kind of burned it a little bit, but that's okay. I don't think that's going to make a big deal. Next you're going to grab the embossing folder, or any embossing folder that you would want to use. You don't have to use this particular stamp set or a stamp set that comes with a matching embossing folder. But in this case I have it, so that's what I'm going to use. And I'm just going to, I can see where that embossed image is, so I'm just taking for this embossing folder, I need to take my cut right to the edge of where it's embossed. It won't emboss right if it doesn't fit perfectly. So I found for it to fit perfectly, it needs to be right on the embossed edge. So that's what I'm doing. Like I said, you could use any embossing folder you wanted to, you had around. It would work fine. Okay, so then you're just going to go ahead and emboss your image. For this embossing folder, you're going to fit it all the way down into the crease. And like I said, I can see it. You guys probably can't. But you can, you know, you're just going to adjust it and make sure it's even. And you're going to run this through your Big Shot, Cuttlebug, whatever you use. I'm going to set that aside because I've already got one that I embossed, so I wouldn't have to pull up my Big Shot. And I'm just going to grab this little piece of, well, I guess I can leave the black there so you guys can see, because I'm going to throw this piece of plastic over top. And if there's a glare, I am really sorry about that. But this is the piece. I've embossed it, and you're going to be able to see that very soon. Now is when your distress stain is going to come in. I started off with the distress ink, and it works. It really does. But I found it's quicker and easier to use the distress stain. You could probably use your glimmer mist, your color mist, anything along those lines. But if you don't have any of that, you can ink it. It does work the same. Now, before I get started, there's one more thing that I forgot to tell you guys about that you're going to need to have. Okay, make that 2. One is going to be at least one baby wipe. At least one. The second you're going to need is paper towel. At least one paper towel. The more, probably better. But at least one of each. Okay? So, I'm going to kind of stick that back out of the way. So what you're going to do is you're just going to take your distress stain and you're just going to start coloring your paper. Just like that. Let me go ahead and get that up, and I'll do it this way so y'all can see it. Okay? And you're just going to start adding color. Now, this is going to be one of those techniques that you're going to get inky fingers. So, if this is something that you don't like or you don't want, you're going to want to go ahead and grab some gloves. Okay? You're just going to ink it. Now, keep in mind, it's going to lighten up. See, I did a oops there. It's going to lighten up as it dries. And you're just going to come over it with paper towel. Sometimes you've got to actually come in with a baby wipe. And you want to do this before it has a chance to dry. And you're just going to wipe off your embossed. Now, there's going to be a few spots that the white doesn't come back. Okay, as you can see, my paper is pretty wet. This is something that probably would work well on a watercolor paper. I did it last time on just cardstock, just like I'm using now. And it does dry okay. But I messed up when I held it with the baby wipe up there. And that's all you're going to do. Just give it some color. And you can kind of see where the embossing comes up because there's kind of a ridge. Okay? And you're just going to let that dry. And there is your inked embossed background. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see y'all next time.